Here we go. Today, I'm talking to a square dance caller. He is multi-talented, and I will explain what I mean by that in just a minute. Today, I'm talking to Hunter Keller. He's a square dance caller. He's a round dance cuer. He's a recording artist. He's been in square dancing most all of his life. I'm going to let him tell you about that. We're just going to have some conversation, talk about some stories that have gone on with him and what he's doing and what he's got coming up. So today, Hunter Keller, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, Charlie. How are you?
I'm doing very good. It's good to finally get to talk to you. It's been a long time since I got to talk to you. So as I was telling everybody, you're a square dance caller. And so square dancing, where did it start for you?
You know, when I was a kid, my grandparents and my parents used to take me from dance to dance, and I watched a couple of other callers that you had talked to, and it sounds like we're all in the same boat that our parents or our grandparents drug us into the activity. And you know, my parents stopped dancing once I was old enough to start walking because somebody had to watch the kid because my nanny was a square dancer as well. So I was the reason mom and dad stopped dancing, and then health problems ended up costing grandma and grandpa the square dance activity, and I moved in with grandma in 2002. My whole family moved in to help take care of grandpa. He'd kind of gone downhill, and so once grandpa passed away, we were all getting ready to move back home, and grandma fell and broke her hip, and we were finding that grandma just couldn't stay by herself anymore. So you know, I told mom and dad, I said, well, I'll stay. You know, I'm 13 years old at the time, and I said, well, I'll just stay. And you know, I'm not sure that my mom thought that was a great idea, but you know, we didn't live that far away, and we were always over there every day anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. But I came home from school in January of '04, and grandma says, I've got a surprise for you. And I thought, right on. I love surprises. So I walk into the living room, and she's got this flyer sitting on the table. It says free square dance lessons. And the club here in town put a flyer in the newspaper, and that's how she saw it. And I said, oh, okay. And I thought, well, I don't want to do this. This is for old people, you know. And so she says, well, I've already contacted George. George was the caller helping put it on. And I thought, oh no, now I have to go because she'll know if I don't. So I reluctantly went and ended up having a great time. That first night, there were like 22, 23 squares of new dancers on the floor.
Nice.
And sitting here today, there is maybe 5 of those dancers left dancing. So I don't know what happened, but something sure did. But started dancing in January of '04, and kind of like a lot of other callers, got bored with classes because you know, it was moving too slow for me. And so I went ahead and found grandpa's old records because grandpa was a caller for a few years, and I thought, well, I'll just listen to what's going on here, and I won't know what's going on, but I'll try it anyway. So I set up grandpa's old Newcomb turntable. It was the one with the red lid that was a speaker. You took it off and it had tubes in it, and you'd turn it on and all the lights would dim real quick and then it'd come back up. I mean, the thing was old, and took 20 minutes to warm it up, you know. So I started throwing records on there, and I'd been DJing and stuff for 4-H dances, and I thought, well, maybe I can practice some of this stuff. So I found some old cassette tapes and that grandma and grandpa had, and started mimicking those. And next thing I know, my dad opens the garage door and catches me in the garage playing with these records and tapes and things. And he never said anything. He just said, you're going to clean that up, right? I said, yes, sir. Put it all away. Never touched it. And he worked at a bakery. He was the bakery manager at one of the grocery stores.
Okay.
And George, the caller, came in, and dad was talking to George, and he says, yeah, I caught Hunter in the garage the other day with all his grandpa's calling equipment. George says, really? Never said anything else. So in Montana, or at least in Billings, we stopped dancing back then, from May to September, because we lost our hall. It went back to the fairgrounds. They'd use it for the fair and everything. So there was no dancing at all for me, other than, getting to go to summer dances and just sit and visit with people.
Okay.
So started again with lessons in the fall, and George cornered me. He says, "Hey, are you coming on Saturday night to the Grapevine dance?" Which was Grapevine's the publication for our council here. And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna do that." He says, "Well, your dad was telling me that you were using one of your grandpa's records." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "And you've got a microphone?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, why don't you bring it Saturday night?" He says, "I'd love to see what you're using." Stupid 16-year-old kid. I said, "Sure, why not? What the heck?" So I bring it down there, and George throws the record on the turntable, and it was Tight Fitting Jeans on Red Boot Star that Elmer Sheffield had recorded.
Okay.
And he puts the microphone on his mic cord, and I'm like, "Man, this is gonna be cool. He's gonna do my grandpa's singing call. That's really neat." And my grandma and my mom and dad are all sitting over there at the tables, and he says, "Okay, Hunter's going to do the singing call." And I just went, okay. Well, in that figure, there's a scoop back that's mixed sex scoop back.
Okay.
Boy and a girl facing in. And that wasn't really called that often up here. So I'm doing the singing call, and I didn't know you could stop and start and change the figures like a lot of newer callers don't. And next thing I know, I'm standing there singing to myself, and everybody's standing on the floor watching me. So I was really lucky. Joe Saltel, he sent me 2 huge boxes of 45s when I first got started, and then Larry Sperry, who's a cuer up here, he cornered me one day and he says, "Hunter, I've got these records that a caller told me when he retired that the next new caller that came along, that I should give them to him." And he says, "So come on over to the house and I'll give them to you." I said, "Okay." And I said, "Well, how long have they been there?" He says, "Oh boy, since like the late 80s, early 90s. And I thought, "Oh my, and I'm the new caller?" So I went over there, and there's this big, huge wooden box full of 45s. I mean, old 45s, top and Gren, and I mean, just old stuff, wagon wheel. And he gave them to me, and he says, "So the caller that gave them to me to give away was your grandpa."
Wow.
So that really meant a lot to me. Still
Sure.
got the case, and I should have known Grandpa built that record case because it weighed as much as a Buick. So, it was kind of a neat little full circle moment for me.
No, absolutely. So you start calling, man, using records and all, and we don't use records anymore. Not many do.
No,
And I think it's lost a little bit because of that. Although digital's super easy, you snatch a laptop around with you, and you've got 5,000 songs if you have them.
yeah.
But you start calling, and you named a few callers that I know I've heard of. I've never got to meet Joe. Is it Sattel? You said.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I still see him a lot on Facebook and all. I've never actually had the opportunity to meet him. But of those, so you start calling along. You'd been around it your whole life. What callers had some influences over you besides your grandfather and some of the folks you'd mentioned? Anybody else?
You know, a lot of callers honestly had influence over me. Some local guys that really helped me out: George Moore, Larry Fott. Those guys really took me under their wing and helped me out. Bob Hogemark, Lynn Strobel, that are all up here, really supported me, and Larry and Susan Sperry, who were round dance cuers, that really took me under their wing, taught me how to round dance, and Larry helped me learn how to cue and write my first dances and those sorts of things. He's been very good to me. And then there's callers that I've known my whole life, guys like Daryl Clendenin, who I mean, one of the first dances that I got to go to, not as I wasn't able to go and dance, but because I was still a student, but my grandma insisted that we go down there, and we walk in the door, and Daryl looked right at my grandma and goes, "Shirley, how are you?" they hadn't seen each other in 10 years, 15 years, whatever it had been. And, Daryl's just one of the nicest guys, is really always been super nice to me. Jerry Junk, and first time I went to Collar Lab was in Colorado Springs in 2007. I knew maybe two people, maybe three. John Jones and Deborah Carroll Jones. I knew those folks. They called the Knothead Jamboree that I went to, and they introduced me to a guy named Bear Miller, who's been great to me as well. Always been very, very supportive of me, as well as Justin Russell, and I mean all the youth. There's nobody, in my opinion, that's more supportive of youth and of the activity than Bear. It's been super, super sweet. And it's been great. And at that time, again, I hardly knew anybody. So for me, I remember two different instances at that convention that kind of changed my outlook on the activity. Because before, for me, I always thought, I'm just doing this for fun, and I'm never really going to travel anywhere. I did it as a 4-H project, and got to travel around the state a little bit, do dude ranches, those sorts of things. And then I get there, and this was back in the MySpace days. And I finally got to meet Justin Russell. And at the time, we both had egos so big that our heads couldn't fit through the door. And we pretended we liked each other, but in secret, we were like, no, we don't like that kid, because he's taken away from me.
Right.
And so I was pretty nervous. They had a first timers dance, and I walked up on stage and I threw my record on the turntable. That's how long ago that was. And it was stand up on rhythm. And I put the needle on the record, and I look up, and dancing in front of me, Deborah Carroll Jones was in the square, and Vic Cedar was in the square. And then I look along the back wall, and along the back wall with their arms folded like this was Wade Driver, Elmer Sheffield Jr., Mike Seastrom, Jerry Story. I mean, all these guys that I'm looking up to. These are some of my heroes, and I am just shaking. And I finish it up, and I hurry up and get my record off the turntable. I can't get the record back in the sleeve, and I run over and I sit between Jerry Justin and John Jones, and I'm just shaking. And he goes, and John looks at me and goes, "See, I told you could do it," in that deep Southern Texas voice. So I thought, well, if I got the John Jones stamp of approval, I must have done okay. Yeah. But walking those halls, I'm walking down the hall, and I look right at me, and or coming right at me was Frank Lane and Marshall Flippo, which were two staples in our house. Frank and Flip, they did the first collar school that my grandpa went to, and so I've heard their names my entire life, and guys like Johnny LeClaire and all those guys, they all had influence on me. It was, and it was weird, because now all of a sudden I get to meet all these guys, and they're talking to me like I know something, like I'm a caller. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, you guys have been doing this forever. Don't you know who you people are? And now I'm fortunate enough to be able to call many of them friends, and they've all helped me a lot, and fast forward to 2008, and I went to a collar school, the second one I went to, actually, which was in West Yellowstone, Montana. First one I went to was with Scott Byers down in California, and I actually met his wife Erin at Collar Lab that year that I went in 2007, and Scott and Erin took a chance on me. My first time out of Montana to call really in another state was Scott and Erin, and they hired me for a festival. I definitely owe them a lot for that. That was very kind. They helped me out, taught me a lot. And then, like I said, I went to the second color school in West Yellowstone. That was Jerry Justin and Tony Oxendine. That was the first time I would get to meet Tony.
Wow.
And, I went through the school. It was great. Learned a lot. And we had a one-on-one session that Tony was kind of critiquing each caller individually. And so I went in, and I'm still got that ego, head's this big. And I walk in and I sit down and Tony goes, Hunter, when I met you, I didn't like you. I mean, just get rid of every bit of ego that I had. And he goes, but now that I've gotten to know you, I like you. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because my thing, I want everybody to like me, So Nationals was coming up at the end of that month, and I get down there, and Tony had invited me to be part of GSI and to get up on stage with the band that first night, which was incredible for me. That was my first Nationals. And little did I know how much that Nationals would change everything for me. I mean, going to Nationals, I got to meet all these other callers that weren't at Caller Lab, and these callers that had that are local callers, and they could go back to their clubs and say, hey, hire this kid. One of the biggest compliments I got was from a club on the East Coast, and they called me and they said, Hunter, Ken Bauer told us to call you and hire you. To me, that was the biggest compliment on the planet. I mean, the Ken Bauer calling about me. Ken Bauer, Gary Shoemake, Flippo, Jerry Haig, they were all so good to me. I mean, a kid that, I'm brand new. I hardly knew how to call Patter at the time. I don't know that I really do now, but I fake it pretty good. But they were all super sweet to me. It just, I was trying to figure out why me. There's so many other callers out there that deserve the help and deserve the support, and they chose me. Just luck, I guess. And fast forward a couple months from Nationals, I get a call from Jerry Story, and he invited me to record a song on Royal, and that was my best birthday gift I've ever got. Wow. It was pretty amazing.
What'd you record?
The first one I recorded was Wild Horses, and huge Garth Brooks fan. So I'm heading out to my horses, and Jerry had told me, he says, find a song that you want to do and let me know, and we'll see if it works. So I'm driving out to the horses, and I hear Wild Horses come on the radio, and I thought, that's the one. Wow. So I did that, and I couldn't go to the recording session that first time, but Jerry called me and said, Hunter, listen to this. And in the background, I hear my song being played in the studio. And he says, you hear that fiddle player? And I said, yeah. He goes, his name is Ravi. He played on the original.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, what? Yeah. So of course I'm, freaking out. It was just amazing. And a couple of days after Jerry called me, Ken Bauer calls me and he says, Hunter, it's Ken. Just got off the phone with Wade Driver. He'd like to invite you to be part of Rhythm Records.
Wow.
So in 2 days, I had, in my opinion, the two biggest labels on the planet call and invite me to be staff. And I said, Ken, I appreciate it, but Jerry just called me and asked me to be part of Royal. I said, but don't call Wade back. I'd like to call him and thank him personally. And I did. And Wade and I share the same birth date. So I won't tell you how many years apart, but we're both August 14th guys.
Okay.
And so every year I try and call him and wish him happy birthday. And Ken's 2 days before us. So I call him on his birthday. And then Justin Russell is 2 days younger than me. So I always like to rub that in his face, especially when the 21 age came around, because I could call him from the bar and go, hey, I'm in a bar. You can't be here yet. And now he goes, yeah, now who's older? Yeah, I know. Shut up. So we like to kid, but
that's
but I've been pretty darn fortunate.
Oh my gosh. No, that's That's phenomenal. All the people you had around you, all those callers. I mean, I've met a lot of those guys, and the Joneses, obviously, just through Caller Lab and everything. But man, to have that at such a young age is just that's a big step. That's really good. And the nerves part of it, man, when you were telling that part where everybody's standing in the back and you got Deborah Carroll Jones and they're dancing up there, you know, I go in somewhere and still to this day, and I know him quite well. If Tony Oxendine walks in, I'm like, I'm done. I lose my place in the patter and everything. You know, I couldn't imagine looking back and seeing all that, the Mike Seastroms of the world and all that, just standing there just watching you. So congratulations on making it through that, buddy. I mean, you can get through that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You can do it. We were talking earlier. Again, I don't know what year it was, and you actually brought it up. I told Justin, I told him this story a while back. There's a video of you, Justin, and Tony and it said Knotheads. It was a Knotheads thing. The three of y'all are doing patter, and it's on. I stumbled onto it on YouTube a long time ago, and more than probably once a month, I pull that up and watch it. And I've stolen so much of that patter through there. And there's one that I can't figure out, and you actually do it, and without going through it, it's like the girl goes left and the boy goes right, and the Alaman, or it might be the girl goes left and right, and it's an Alaman left. And Tony in his style, he's like, wow. And I was like, God, I wish I could get that reaction off of an Alaman left. That was awesome. There was another thing I wanted to ask you about too on that. And we met when you were in Kennesaw a long time ago, calling for Kennesaw Square Dealers. I don't know where I was going with that, but now the recording. So you've got a lot of recordings out there, yes?
I do.
What have you done lately with recordings and things? Anything?
You know, I just, after quite a few years, finally was able to find out that they've released one of the songs that I've been doing for a long time. Mike Bramlett out of Texas had put this song together called "You Gave Me a Mountain," and it was an Elvis tune that I fell in love with immediately. Big Elvis fan, you know, and I kept asking him, when are you going to put it out? When are you going to put it out? When are you going to put it out? And he says, man, I'll put it out at some point. Well, he calls me a couple months ago and he says, Hunter, I sold all of that music that I produced to Don Wood of Lumac. And I went, cool. And he says, so I told Don he has to have you record the vocal, that nobody else can record that vocal. And I said, okay. So Don emailed me, says, will you do it? I said, sure. Well, I got ready to record the vocal and my desktop computer crashed. So I thought, well, I'll reformat it. I'll get it all done. So I did. It didn't work. So I had to buy a new one. So then I get it set up and ready to go, and started getting a cold. And this was just, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. And I said, I got to do this vocal. I promised Don I'd have it done. So I hurry up and did the vocal with a cold. And I just, did it in one take and mastered it and sent it off to Don. I said, here you go. Let me know if you want anything changed. Thinking he was going to come back and go, you have a cold, don't you? And instead he says, no, it sounds great. I'll get it out. So last week I get a couple of text messages from guys saying, hey, Don sent us the comps with the vocal. Great job. Joe Saltel calls me and says, that might have been the best vocal you've ever done. So now I've decided every time I'm going to do a vocal, I'm going to make sure I'm sick, because apparently that's the way to do it.
Oh man!
But so that one's coming out. We've got a couple on Royal that haven't been released yet.
Okay.
One of them is "Life's About to Get Good" by Shania Twain, and there's a Neil Diamond cut that I did.
Okay.
And right now I'm drawing a blank because, as I get older, my memory's not so good.
Oh, I know the feeling, buddy. I didn't know all y'all were August birthdays. By the way, I'm August the 9th. Of course, I'm ahead of most of all y'all. So we're all right there in
Yeah.
the same 2 week period. What I'd forgotten about, but I wanted to ask you, there's also a video that I stumbled across, no idea when it was or anything. You do a singing call where you imitate about 4 different callers. And
Oh
it is,
my.
and
Yeah.
knowing who those callers were, it was outstanding to listen to. Tell me what that was, because it's probably been a year since I found that. What was that?
So things when callers and cures sometimes get together, they partake in adult beverages.
Yes, sir.
I was up in Spokane. I did a dance up there, and I was staying with the Cure couple up there, John and Fran Downing, when they actually lived up in Spokane. They live down in California now. But I was staying with them, and we went, sat in the hot tub, and we're just having a grand old time, laughing and joking and telling stories. And they're telling me all these folks that they've worked with. And they said something about Mike Seastrom, and I went, "Oh, man, I love it. That's fantastic. All right, it's great." And John goes, "That was awesome, Hunter. You have to put that into a singing call." I said, "No, that's stupid." So then I started thinking, well, who could I imitate?
Mm-hmm.
So I started off with Elvis, and then I'd do like Bill Clinton, and for a while before things got so politicized, I was Donald Trump, and then I would do Mike Seastrom and then Mike Sikorsky, and I'd always finish it with Jerry Story.
Mm-hmm.
And it became this thing that I just thought, I'll just do it once and it'll never go anywhere. It'll just be kind of a spoof thing. Unfortunately, now people ask me to do it all the time. I know Jerry knew I did it, and I know Mike knows Seastrom knows I do it. And people have told Sikorsky about it. I remember we were at Nationals in Spokane, and Sikorsky comes walking in the door, and he goes, "Did you call already?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Did you do the impersonation tip already?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Dang it, I missed it again." I said, "You walk in the hall, I'll stop mid song. I won't finish it." I said, "Yeah, I don't want you to see it." So, but it's been good. I started putting during the middle break, I started putting Ken Bauer in there too, and sometimes when I'd call Ken, I would D would answer the phone, and I go, D, is Ken home? She go, "Yeah, Hunter, hang on a second." No reaction, no nothing. I didn't even have to tell her who it was. So, but
man, it's awesome. Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier when I knew I was going to talk to you today. I was like, man, I got to remember the imitation one because it was just great. Yeah. I found it a long time ago, and I just thought it was one of the best things. So, yeah, so you've been queuing about how long you've been queuing? As long as you've been calling?
No, I started queuing a little bit in 2010, and just been within the last maybe 10 years that I've really picked it up and started to do it a lot more. Larry and Susan now go south to Arizona for the winter,
mm-hmm.
and they've very graciously asked me to take over their round dance club during the time while they're away, so that the folks up here that aren't going south can still get to round dance every week. So we dance 3 through 5 and all sorts of different rhythms, and wrote my first dance in 2019, a rumba, and then I just finally got my first waltz out in December of last year, and it was just one of those things where I'm driving down the road and a song came on my phone, and I thought, man, I really like that. That should have a dance written to it. So I started working on it, and just kind of drug my feet for a while, and finally finished it and put it out, and it actually ended up going a few places, which was really shocking to me. I had some folks down in Texas say that they were going to teach it at their round dance, their annual round dance weekend thing that they had down there, of all the cuers from that area in Texas. Larry and Susan taught it down at Yuma Festival,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been using it down in Arizona. And some other folks have taken cue sheets back to California with them. So I mean, it's going places, which to me, I mean, just shocked me completely. But it was very sweet to see that and have the support of that too.
One thing I was thinking too, when I brought up you being in Kennesaw, I remember that you were the first. I mean, I knew there were callers everywhere, but you were the first out of Georgia, because my whole life has been right here in Georgia, and my dancing and calling and everything else for the most part. And but when you came in and did that dance, I'd heard of you. But when you went up there, and I forget what year it was, obviously you were young, because you're not old now. So, and it was years ago. And I was just on the very beginnings of trying to call. And then when I saw you, I was like, that's a young dude doing this. You know, you did an Elvis song somewhere toward the end, to the point where I'm not making it up for anybody. If anybody was Kennesaw, at the end of singing calls, people will clap if you've done a good job, stuff like that. I mean, every caller gets that from time to time. But to tell you that everybody standing on the sides and everything stopped, and there was just this ovation of you doing the Elvis, the way you ended it. And I forget what the song was. Do you know what? Do you remember the song?
That was the "You Gave Me a Mountain" that we just finally released.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, it blew folks away. And that was back when, I mean, the club was probably 10 squares. I mean, it was a big night. And so that put something in my head. I was like, man, I'd like to be able to get that kind of response. Still haven't got that kind of response from anybody yet, but working towards that. So you travel around some, you traveled a lot. I saw where you'd been to about 46 states, more or less.
46 states, and I think we're at 14 or 15 countries at this point, which is, like I said, when I started in 04, I never thought I'd call outside of Billings, let alone outside of Montana, but it's been amazing. I've got to see a lot of really amazing places, and do a lot of really amazing things, and of course meet a lot of amazing people. One of my favorite things that I always remember is when I would go back and I'd call for the gadabouts there in Maryland, Hagerstown, Maryland. I stay with Bob Long, and Bob knew how much of a history buff I am, and I love that kind of stuff. So first time we were out there, he took me to Antietam Battlefield, and he took me to Gettysburg. Well, Bob grew up in Gettysburg, so I had my own personal tour guide, which is just incredible, and then the last time I was out there, he took me down to Washington, D.C., to the mall at night. I'd never been down there at night. I've been to D.C. a couple of times, but never down there at night. And it was amazing, and things like that I get to do that. I mean, I may never have got the opportunity to go do those things. When I went to Memphis with Justin a couple of times, we went to Sun Record Studio, and went to Graceland, which, I mean, I was like a kid in a candy store at Graceland. So, and then getting to record in Nashville, I got to meet people that, I mean, these guys are on every record that you've ever heard coming out of Nashville. I mean, the fiddle player that played on Wild Horses played for Brooks and Dunn and Reba, and I mean, every big artist, Shania Twain. He was on that. The guitar player that we used for the longest time, he was a guitar player and a bus driver for Bill Anderson. Okay. So he was telling me I got this opportunity to just hang out with him for a couple of hours, and we were sitting there talking before we were able to chart music and stuff. And he was telling me all sorts of stories about Nashville and the days when he was traveling on the road with these guys, and it was incredible to hear these stories, sure. and just things that, I mean, I'll never forget.
That's you've got that man. We could go for hours just listening to some of these things. The stuff that you've just stumbled into and put yourself in place for. I mean, because you do have ability, obviously, and you've got a talent.
Thank you.
And it's fun to be around, and definitely when you get to talk to people. And in Nashville, I went with Tony and Ted when we recorded last year, and I was just like, man, this is amazing. And I told a few people, we took a week to do the songs that we did, and talking to Justin, he told me, he's like, we go down there and they do the music, and then we go to Subway for lunch, and then we go back and do the vocals. And I was like, dude, are you kidding? One day? I'd have lost my mind. So,
yeah.
Now you travel around, and I did notice next year is going to be the first square dance cruise that I'm going on. I'm just going to dance and be around this giant cruise they have next year in 2023.
Sure.
You've got some cruises coming up?
Right now I don't. I just finished one last September with Pat Carnathan.
Okay, that's
we started planning it, and we started planning that in 2019. Supposed to sail in 2020, and then that COVID thing hit. So we said, fine, we'll push it to 21. Well, then COVID hit again. So we said, fine, we'll push it to 22. So finally, we got to go on our Mediterranean cruise, which was pretty amazing. And I think that was the fourth cruise that I've done. My first one I did was in 2008 or 9 with Scott and Aaron Byers. We did the Panama Canal, which was amazing. And then I did one with Nasser Shukar, and we did the Caribbean for a while. That was pretty amazing. Got to actually call in Puerto Rico. They're for the club that's in Puerto Rico. They don't typically have live callers, but we were able to call for those folks, which was really cool. And then Pat and I did another Mediterranean cruise. We went from Fort Lauderdale to San Diego, so that was the opposite direction from the other time that I went. And then we just did this Mediterranean one. So pretty amazing things, and done a few land tours. We did one to Hawaii back in 2012, which was fun. And it's amazing how many opportunities there are with square dancing to travel and see the world, even just as dancers. I mean, I've got friends all over the world. I mean, people from Germany and Australia and Japan and Taiwan. I mean, all over. And it's just been amazing. And I'm very, very fortunate to have been able to do all of this.
Absolutely, man. You've got years ahead. That's amazing. I can't imagine when you decide to sit down and write a book about it all, because you got to do it, brother.
I might be able to write some things, but most of the stuff I can't put in print. That's be used against you in a court of law.
Well, that's why you wait till you get much, much older. That way you don't have to answer for it. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, and I ask when I have the callers on here that I talk to, and you've been doing it for a while, but if you just walked in, what's your favorite singing call right now? I know it bounces around for everybody, but if you were going to do one right now, what's your favorite?
I've got the one that I was just thinking of was that's coming out on Royal is Longfellow Serenade, and I'm a big Neil Diamond fan too, and love that tune. That one's a lot of fun. I've got another one coming out that's going to be pretty great. Can't tell you the name of it yet, but it's going to be coming out on Royal. And we're working on the music right now, and so that's going to be a good one too. But right now, I think Longfellow Serenade, like I said, is always good. I've been going back and pulling a lot of stuff from the archives, if you will, and just going back and trying to even use some stuff that I haven't used in 10, 15 years at this point. And it's one of those things where you go back and you look and you go, oh, I forgot about that song. So if you force yourself to go back and look at other things that you have and go, well, I haven't used that forever. Why haven't I? It's nice, especially if you have a home club that you call for. When I was calling for the home club here, I had I had Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, and then occasionally I would sub for another caller on Wednesdays. So I was calling almost every night of the week. And, most of those people are the same folks that are showing up at these clubs. So you got to be careful what songs you use. Otherwise, you're using the same stuff every week. So I forced myself to change it up. And I'm still doing that, when I go to different places. They could be, California this weekend and Washington next weekend. And I still want to make sure that the songs are separate, because you never know who's going to show up. And I know some guys that actually keep track of which songs they do for which club on which date,
Right.
so that they can go back and say, well, the last time I was here, I did these songs, so we don't want to do those. So I'm not that computer savvy, I guess.
I was gonna say I don't have those kind of organizational
maybe
skills.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah, it's
Also,
it's
how
not something I do.
how high do you call level wise in dance?
I'm calling through A2 right now. Right before that pandemic thing, I flew out to Minnesota and set up a dance with Dan Sahlstrom out there. And I had talked to Dan and his wife, Janet, and I said, I want to learn C1. I want to learn to dance it. I want to learn to call it. I said, but in Montana, we don't even have any advanced clubs at this point. The highest in Montana is Plus. I said, so if I fly out there, could we do a blast? And then, I'd come out there again. And of course, I had a bunch of dates lined up where there was going to be challenge going on. So I could go dance challenge on my breaks and stuff. And then the pandemic hit and shut everything down. So now I've pretty much forgot all the challenge stuff. So now we're going to try and do another one of those blast classes where I can force it in.
Okay. So you're going to be at Caller Lab into this month?
I will be.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah. A couple of weeks from now.
That's good. That's always a good time. And there are after parties there for sure. And
I don't know what you're talking about.
And of course we got nationals, I guess, in June in Alabama. You're gonna be able to make it down for that, you think?
That one I won't be able to. I'm heading over to Denmark in May to do the Danish National Convention, and with the new job, I have to be very careful on my vacation time too.
Sure. Okay. So tell me what social media you got out there. Obviously, I said you're on YouTube, and people need to go find the ones I talked about. But what else you got going?
I've got YouTube. I've got Facebook. I've got a Facebook page, Hunter Keller Square Dance Caller. Go like that. I put a lot of different things on there. They can go to my website, hunterkeller.com. There's videos on there. There's flyers on there. My calendar's on there. You can sign up for my little mail list, and I send out different events that are going on. Weekends that I've got going up here. We've got some other weekends that I'm trying to put together. We'll see how those go, but those are in the early planning stages at the moment, and trying to get one with Justin Russell and Tony Oxendine together. So we're hoping that'll pan out. And
y'all do it this side of the country, please?
I'm down for that. I like coming over there.
Okay.
As long as it's not during hurricane season,
right.
God forbid winter, I always tell people some of the coldest winters I've ever spent, not in Montana. They're on the East Coast.
Sure.
But yeah, it's I love getting over that way.
Okay.
I was one of my first times over that way. It was at Pride RV Resort that's up there in Maggie Valley, and it was the coolest thing. Jerry and Tony invited me over there, and for a week, Jerry worked with me every day for an hour or two, working to help teach me how to call. So I basically had a private caller school with Jerry and with Tony for an entire week, and that, I know guys have chopped their left leg off to do that.
Absolutely.
They just did that for me, which was incredible. I
finally, last year, I got to go up and spend a week with Tony and Ted Lazat and
Sure.
Jack Platties and doing their I think it was a plus week or whatever it was, and just dancing with them. And it's just I had no idea what they did up there, and it's just phenomenal. It's a must for anybody who likes square dancing for sure.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Anything else we want to talk about, Justin? I can't think. Man, like I said, we can go for hours. You've got so many stories, and I know we were just scratching the surface of that, brother. But you're going to be at Caller Lab. Then you're going out of country in June, and I wouldn't pass that up. I mean, that kind of opportunity, man, that's awesome. So let's see. I tell you what, tell us one more thing about you.
Oh, well,
do you got horses in Montana?
I've got horses here in town, and you know, I was in 4-H for 10 years. I was a 4-H leader for a few years, and just recently joined Breakfast Exchange Club up here in Billings. They do a lot of work for kids, and decided that since I'm home a little bit more than I was before, I'd like to get involved in an organization that also is able to help out youth. You know, there's a lot of kids out there that don't get the attention that they need or deserve, and so if that's something we can help with, I'm all for it. But yeah, I grew up here, born and raised in Montana, with the exception of 2 years in California. I've lived here my whole life, so it's been
first person I've ever met from Montana, sir. First person, so.
But best person you've ever met from Montana?
Absolutely the best, sir. Absolutely the best.
Never mind, it's the only one. But
well, Hunter, I want to thank you for talking to me, brother. It's been a pleasure. Like I say, we didn't even talk about one time I got to do a dance with you. It's the shortest minute when we were on the bridge at the Atlanta thing, and I consider that a dance because it was you and Justin there with my buddy Sean Butler. So maybe one day down the road we can do something together again, or I'd just like to dance in front of you, brother. So Hunter Keller, awesome talking to you, man. Safe travels, especially when you're going out of country, but I will see you in a couple weeks at Caller Lab. It was a pleasure talking to you, man. All right, Hunter.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You have a good day, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right, bye.